The Serpent's Niece and the Colt by Judd Richardson.
She was beautiful. There really wasn't much more to her. I know it's wrong to see a woman as an object, or even as something sexual. It's just, looking at her, I couldn't think of anything else. In many ways, she was a commercial for all young, unmarried men to come and visit Romania. Regardless of my previous reasons for coming here, I had suddenly found a new one. Walking up the lake beach, her hips and red hair swayed in a soothing rhythm to the soft waves that yearned just to touch her bare feet. Feeling guilty for my voyeuristic attitude, I allowed other words to flow through my mind. Elegant, regal, sensual, feminine. Sure, I was single and not too bad looking for a tall, gangly guy, but even as she finished her stroll, I gave up all hopes. She probably didn't even speak English, and with my piss-poor Romanian, I would only make an ass of myself. At least, I could... better? I jumped, being stirred from my thoughts as the waiter stepped back, the bottle of beer on his tray shaking dangerously. "Oh, yeah, beer," I said, and began to search for my wallet, feeling like an idiot. I paused, trying to remember one of my 6 Romanian phrases I learned on the plane. Mulțumesc, I said in my really sad Romanian. Even the waiter was confused at my bad Romanian. Handing me the bottle of beer, he took the money and left. Greedily, I turned my eyes back to the lake, and I sank back into my chair. In a big black puff of exhaust, she was gone. The worn-out gray car that had brought her, now disappearing around the corner. Probably forever. Not missing a moment, I opened the bag beside me and pulled out a leather-bound notebook. Instead of leaning my head back and dozing in the lukewarm air, hoping to dream of her like any normal man, I turned to my curse. You see, I'm a writer. I usually don't keep a notebook, but this was a special trip. I was on a quest. I was looking for the next great horror novel. But from what I had just seen, I had to put it to paper. Stephen King could wait a little longer to hail me the next great monster maker. With the ferocity of a madman, I began to write. Hips swaying with a seduction only a boat may understand. Her fickleness quick to change, but worth the risk. I stopped, winced, and crossed it out. Her height is a perfect... cross that out. Her height is a perfect compliment. There you go. Her height is a perfect compliment to my lean figure. Ooh, I like that. Just right to lean down to kiss her soft red lips. One foot obviously popping up. Well, hers, not mine. Duh. A prize for the tallest tower. Death, life, and power. Oh gosh, that was terrible. Cross that off in a long line. Here we go. And hair red as fall leaves rich in amber, and eyes so blue the lake turned in shame. She is a goddess. Okay, I admit, I am not a romance author. Matter of fact, I'm not much of an author. With 3 unsuccessful blogs, a dead manuscript, and an English degree, I don't have much more than a dream. Sitting up, I tossed the notebook back into my pack, bitter that I had failed at molding this woman onto paper. Giving up, I looked over the countryside one last time and sipped my beer. For being a country depicted by Carl Freund in his 1930s horror films as dark and foggy, with evil peering from every shadow, the place was surprisingly beautiful. Romania was untouched by modernism. The luscious countryside had a magic to it. It was quaint. It was serene, and it was inhabited by a goddess. For the past hour, I'd been sitting here, studying the towering castle and overlooking the land from a small lakeside restaurant. At first, looking like a crouching gargoyle, the castle had been ominous. But now, it was just like any other European castle, sitting on a hill overlooking a sleepy town. Disappointed, I took a long gulp of beer. In my mind, Transylvania had always been a dark and untamed part of the world. But when I got off the train at the station and looked around, I knew I'd been the fool. By coming here, I had pulled away the curtain that had kept the magic alive. only to find the place was nothing but a rundown hole. Enough of this, you idiot, I thought as I stood, the half-empty drink looking up at me. I picked up my bag and swept up my nearly shattered dreams and walked towards the street. The chances of a book coming out of this trip is 0. I doubt that goddess will ever notice you either, old Jackie boy. She's probably the wife of Count Dracula, and I doubt you can compete with that. Try not to think of my lack of inspiration and slight failure, I returned to the boarding house I was staying at for dinner. Entering, I saw the other guests sat waiting for their meal to arrive. Taking my place at the table, I was glad that I wouldn't have to wait long, as Miss Alderian appeared with a large tray of steaming food. If I ate quickly, I could go to my room and sulk. "Oh, Mr. Griffin, how was the beach?" Miss Alderian asked in her poor English as she set the tray of authentic cabbage rolls down. I nodded and took in the meal. I hated cabbage. "It was warmer than I thought," I said with a fake smile. "You were right. 21 degrees is warm enough to tan." "How is the book?" Cheval Malais, one of the 2 other guests, asked as he helped himself to several rolls. "Why did you not go to Castellinaltel?" Cheval lifted the tray and handed it to me. Here on holiday, the Frenchman had taken it upon himself to tell me of all the places I should go see. "I was going to," I said as I took the tray. "I figured I'd work my way up to it. Romania is truly an amazing place, but if something catches my attention, I'm distracted all day." I placed the smallest of the rolls on my plate and passed the tray. Barbaroga, an old Russian grandmother, took the tray and smiling, showing off her brown, crooked teeth. "I wish I could write. My babushka, she used to tell me the most horrific stories about Mother Russia before they pulled down the wall. I could write and write all day and never stop." Barbaroga was an odd one. Here in Romania, for a family gathering or a pilgrimage of some sort, she hardly left the house. "No, no, no," Cheval called out. "I've lived horror stories. I have actually seen Death himself ride off with his victims." Barbaroga touched the medallion around her neck. "Oh, I pray I may be received with such honor." Ignoring the others, I lifted my fork to my mouth and bit into the roll. Instantly, a gag raced up my throat as the slimy texture of the cabbage and crumbly meat fought in my mouth. "Oh, God," I prayed. "Let all this end, please." "Don't you, old Griffin?" Miss Alderian asked. "Mr. Griffin, is everything okay?" Eyes watering and neck bulging, I nodded. Grabbing my drink, I took a long draw and drowned the invading body. "I apologize," I coughed. Wrong pipe." I feigned content, but the decapitated roll on my plate glared at me. "Miss A, do you know of a redhead that walks the beach around 5? "Oh, Cheval laughed. "That is what you meant by being distracted. You've in love." "Shut up, you horse," Barbaroga said, her eyes wide. "I was in love once." Ignoring the others, Miss A thought, "No, I cannot think of one." "She drives an old gray, I thought, Herdestec. Gray with rust on the passenger side. Puts out a lot of smoke." "Distraction! That is why you cannot write," Cheval laughed. "Take her to the castle. Best view in town." Miss A's eyes darkened and she spit on the ground. "Car belongs to Hans, the old snake. He lends it out to renters. He takes many renters from me." I have to admit that I had no idea what to expect when I made the 1.5 mile walk to Hans the next day. Looking at the place the grocer had told me Hans lived, I found a 3-level home that looked as though the builder wasn't even sure what he was making. Part barn, part house, and all ugly. I worried the grocer had misunderstood me. All around the house, the thick green grass that seemed to rule the countryside surrounded the place, with only a few unruly bushes growing with their backs up to the house, keeping that grass at bay. The sign read, at what I figured was the front door, "Serpent Cupine." I mouthed the words, trying to still understand this foreign language, questioning my sanity and praying that this was the boarding house. I entered. A bell placed above the door chimed as I stepped into a dim, smoky sitting room. Letting my eyes adjust, I took in the green and yellow-brown patterned wallpaper that looked ready to be shed for a new skin. Facing the curtained window, 2 ivory-colored chairs sat looking out on the road. "Si vere!" a voice called from the darkened doorway. My heart thudded against my chest as a barrage of Romanian was thrown at me. I turned on my heel. "Oh, I'm sorry." I searched my rattled brain for another one of my words. "Excuse." The man stepped forward, scowling, his face thin and sharp. For the first time since arriving here, I think I'd finally found a man that looked like he would be the type to carry a torch up to Frankenstein's castle. "Palia ka'achi," he said, pointing to the door. What surprised me most about this man was that he was not angry, but rather he was afraid. Eyes wide and face pale. He looked terrified of me. I backed to the door and made a motion with my hands as if I was driving. "No, I want your car. Rent? Car." The man stepped back, holding a cross that hung around his neck. "Dia parte diavol." Grabbing the doorknob, I was about to open the door and run from the stupid idea when an angel called out, "Uncle." The man turned to another door that had been closed just a moment ago and bowed his head in shame. Standing there was my red goddess. I don't know what she said to him, but several times she'd motioned to me. The man scowled at me and shrank back to the pit from whence he came. "Please forgive my uncle. He's kind of superstitious. He believes it's bad luck to rent from the lady that you're boarding with right now. It seems the two of them don't like each other." She laughed. Remembering Mrs. A spitting at the mention of Hans, I had witnessed it myself. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause a scene." I stopped, amazed at her beauty. "I'm sorry, I was looking to rent his car. I was told he does rent it out from time to time." She nodded and stepped into the light, her blue eyes consuming my attention. "He does, but I'm using it today." "Oh, darling, come to me," I thought as I stared into those eyes. "For you, I will walk to the ends of the earth." "Ah," I said. "That's too bad. I'm heading into town right now. Would you like to come with me?" My heart leapt. "Darling, I will carry you there if I have to." "Sure, that'd be great." With keys in hand, we walked to the car. I paused and looked at the bent door handle that wouldn't open on the car. "You have to reach around through the window. It's kind of jank." Obeying, I reached in and opened the passenger door. Working the ignition and the key, my goddess smiled. "My name's Carrie." The car started, signaling a loud boom from the exhaust. I'm Jack Griffin." Carrie worked the clutch and shifter with skilled hands, and soon we were off. "I'm sorry. Uncle's car is a little unique. So, Jack, where are you from?" As the car picked up speed, rattling from underneath and around the car grew louder. I leaned towards Carrie. "I'm from Idaho, but living in Arizona." I paused from time to time as the occasional boom from the tailpipe added unnecessary crescendos to my rattling tune. "I'm from California. My parents are from here. They moved when I was really young." Inside, I wanted to pinch myself. I couldn't believe this was happening. "So tell me," she yelled over the noise, "what brings you to Romania?" My heart slowed. Oh, here we go again, I thought. "I'm a writer." She looked surprised, a look that could easily be faked. I'd seen that look. It was the type of look when you tell someone from New York you're from Nebraska. It's the, "Oh, that's nice" look, or even the, "I don't know what to say about that" look. "I think that's awesome. When I was at Berkeley, one of my professors told me I should become a writer. I have a knack for it, but I found that I don't have the perseverance. It's much harder than it seems." My eyebrows twitched. "Yeah, well, it is what it is. Have you been published?" Oh, and now for the death blow. I shrank. It never went well when people learned that I'm not only a writer, but an unpublished one at that. "No," I answered. "You still in school? Berkeley, you say?" "Oh, no, you don't, Jack," she laughed. "I have to know. Tell me. What genre do you write?" "Horror." I stole a look at Carrie, not sure if she was serious. That's why I came. Oh, I realized what I was about to say was probably racist. She looked at me and then back at the road. You can say it. That's why you came here. Yeah, I was hoping to get some inspiration. She grinned. I have a great idea. Why don't I come with you? Let's find inspiration. Tell me the place and we'll go. You really mean it, don't you? Anywhere. A ball of black smoke burst from the car and I remember Cheval's recommendation. How about the castle? I pointed to the lake where the castle loomed above us. Carrie's eyes shifted from me to the castle. Oh, She paused. I'd rather not. I've heard some terrible things about that place. I laughed, unsure if she was serious or not. You gotta be joking. Nothing. You're a grown woman. What's to be afraid of? Yeah, well, maybe you're right. I know it. I've spent enough nights in a graveyard and played my fair share of the Ouija boards. Take you to the castle. Cheval's word pressed me. Best view in town. Let's do it for inspiration. I lied. To this day, I do feel bad for egging Carrie on like that. It was unfair of me. Perhaps things would have worked out better between us. Driving to the tower, I watched Carrie as her sullen face grew paler, as if a dark echo of unknown ancestors called a warning to her. A couple of times I tried asking her if everything was okay, but she just shrugged, telling me she couldn't hear me over the car's rattling. But as we made our slow crawl up the hill, I admit that even I felt uneasy, as if the sleeping giant of evil would awake and swat me like a fly. As the vague details of this huge building came into focus, the vast countless rooms and towers seemed to hide sinister eyes that watched us. White limestone granite walls carved from the mountainside by the hands of knuckle-scarred peasants, giving their lives to their lords, marking a people long consumed by death. Carrie pulled to a stop outside the open gates and looked at me. Jack, I don't like this. I rolled my eyes, my mind fully set on her beautiful face. I'm serious. Everybody in town hates this place. Come on. If that were really true, then they would have torn down this place a long time ago. Carrie shook her head. No. She whispered as if afraid to draw attention of the evil before us. Carrie shook her head. No. She whispered as if afraid to draw attention of the evil before us. Come with me, she begged. What's the matter? Uncle said this place is evil, and that the wicked gather here. I opened my door, making my intentions clear. Oh God, this place is so backwards. A bunch of farmers that still use horse-drawn wagons and drive cars that are single-handedly killing this planet. Carrie's eyes began to tear up. Please, I know it must sound absurd, but I have a bad feeling about this place. We need to get out of here. I opened the door. You know what? You are beautiful. You look elegant and smart. But I have to say that I was wrong. There isn't much inside that head of yours. Get out of here. I'll walk back by myself. Turning my back on Carrie, I entered the rusted gates of the castle that I hadn't suspected to be abandoned. For such a perfect tourist trap, I had thought it would at least have a visitor's booth. It was hard to believe that these people were so backwards that they wouldn't even use this place to bring in money. A frown took my face as I listened to the rattling of the old Russian junker as my footsteps crunched the ancient gravel. I was almost halfway when I thought to look back. By now I'd expected Carrie to come running, but the car took off with a big blast of smoke. Whatever. Cheval was right, I thought. Distraction. I stopped in the path when the castle filled my view, and I took in the shapes, colors, contrasts, and oddities of an age long gone. Closing my eyes, I put myself in the minds of those that designed the place, and then moved to those that slaved over it, and finally into the soft shoes of the man that lived here. I lived the moments of great feasts, harlots, battle meetings, and at last died of old age in my bed. In the highest tower, of course. I nodded, impressed with myself. With my distraction gone, perhaps there would be a book found on this trip after all. Walking up to the doors, I pondered what the book would be like. Maybe I'd take the easiest way out and do a Twilight ripoff, but with more blood, and maybe an 1800s version of Friday the 13th, with a great Transylvania lord running from a disfigured, undying man. I laughed. Sensationalism, what a joke. Plenty of authors had made their living off of it. If I wanted to join their ranks, all I would have to do was add a cult to my story, and I'd have it. As long as I had the word cult in the title, being published would be probably guaranteed. People love cults. I was nearly to the door when I stopped and blinked. The door. It was open. Clearly it had been nailed shut with what looked to be old barn slats. Whoever had broken the seal had been determined. I looked back at the gate, now a quarter mile from the door. From here it seemed impossibly far away, almost as if two hooded figures stepped from the bushes and pushed the gates shut. I had no words. I was disbelieving. The two halves of the gates met with a ringing clang like a church bell in a graveyard. The echo rattling my bones and shaking me to the core, I stepped back, expecting the hooded figures to come at me. But after wrapping a chain around the middle, they dissolved back into the bushes. A minute passed. 2 minutes. I was alone. Cemented to the steps, I felt my heart slowly beating, just waiting for something to happen. A gentle draft, smelling of mildew and moist wood, flowed from the castle's toothless maw behind me. Trying to understand what was happening, I licked my lips. They were so dry. And then my heart stopped. A humming filled the air. At first, the rhythmic hum felt like an electric tension in the air. But soon the heinous sound grew into a sinister chant. Dark and guttural, the chant called Lorden Quante Maribane Cadraiani. The chant grew and grew until it sounded to be an army from hell calling to their lord and master, yearning for his wicked eyes to turn to their decaying flesh. I covered my ears, but the sound ripped through them. Verantiana death exenta. Then it stopped. I am glad you did not get distracted. I turned to face a hooded robed figure in the doorway. We've been waiting. I knew the voice. From the door, 5 figures dressed in deep red robes came to me. Even in the light, the darkness of their hoods masked their faces in a murky darkness. Yes, we have been waiting for a long time, a raspy voice replied. So long. Come. I yelled again as more robed figures without faces came at me from the woods. Hands took shape from the robes and grabbed my struggling body with agonizing strength. I tried to fight, but soon I realized it was pointless. There was nothing I could do as they dragged my pale body into the darkness of the castle, like a wicked red tentacle pulling its prey into its lair. Cheval, I said, tears streaming down my face. Cheval, this isn't funny. I agree, the Frenchman said as he held my feet. It is an honor to have you. Why? I cried. Why? I did nothing. Should we tell him of his purpose? Barbaroga asked at my arm. Mr. Griffin, we have been waiting for someone like you to come of your own free will, Miss A said at my knee. I don't know what you're talking about. The group paused for a moment and then turned to a set of winding stairs. Still holding me tight, they began to climb. Griffin, Cheval said, we are but spiders on a web. We did not bring you, but now that you are here, we will not let you go. Our master needs you. Your master? I cried. Who? The Dark One, Barbaroga screeched. The gates of disorder are waiting you. Tears blurring my vision, we entered into the highest room of the tallest tower in the castle. Thick, dark drapes in the windows and flickering candles marked the site of evil and degradation. Laying limp in the cultist's grip, I wished that I would get one last look at the beautiful sky, and to form one last line of prose before my life was cut from my chest. But instead of light, I saw a shriveled corpse with long, tangled hair and dark, greasy nails, gray and curled. This was the Dark Lord, neither dead nor asleep. Beside the corpse, an altar had been placed. The dried face of the decaying flesh turned of its own accord and looked into my soul. Its hollowed eyes, where the sun had set many centuries long ago, held nothing but the torment of eternities, hell, and brimstone. I was out of tears and full of fear. Closing my eyes, I prepared to die. A scream echoed from the hallway. Opening my eyes, I could see that only Miss A and Cheval were left in the tower. "You fool!" Miss A screeched. "You were to leave a watch at the gate." Cheval pulled out a sword, and Miss A, an old revolver, appeared from the folds of her robes. Shots echoed up the stairs, and more screaming echoed from below. "Where is the door bar, you fat woman?" Cheval yelled. "We have never needed it. The master was safe. There was no point." A flash filled the room, and Miss A fell to the ground in a large fatty heap. Cheval let out a screech as he raised his sword. Men dressed in regular clothes were pouring into the small room now. With the slash of his blade, Cheval held them back, but stopped when a pitchfork hit his chest with a meaty thud. The man with the pitchfork yelled and rammed the Frenchman into the covered windows, throwing the cultist into the light. Blinking and confused, I felt the light pour over me. The man with the pitchfork came to me and helped me up, all the while not turning his back to the corpse. "Come, come!" Carrie's snake-faced uncle ordered as he tried to help me up. Afraid and shaken I stood. We left the tower together and found Carrie in the courtyard. From high above us, a screech echoed from the towers as flames began to billow from its windows. I didn't stay in Romania. I wish I could say the next horror novel had been birthed, but I quit writing after that day. I'm now a copy editor for Schuster Publishing House. I guess my desire to be inspired by the past to make stories of evil and darkness dried up like those hollowed eye sockets. I don't know what became of Carrie. I guess she went back to the UK. We never talked after that day. As for her uncle, I owe him my life. Knowing that I had been with Miss A and her boarders, he had gathered a mob after I drove off with Carrie. When Carrie rocketed into town, they were ready. Because of that day, though, I became like her uncle. I fear what lurks in the night.